I am here with Sami Chang. She did a project with the Malacology department at the Burke Museum. Thanks so much for joining us, Sami.
Hi, yeah, it's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Can you start off and tell us a little bit about the project that you did with Melissa Frey and the Malacology department?
This past month I did two projects with the Malacology department in Melissa. The first project was illustrating the word mollusca, where every letter of the word was represented a different mollusk group, which was a lot of fun. And then the second project I did was a comic strip about the slugs of the Pacific Northwest and, what kind of slugs are up there and where you can find them.
Perfect. Yeah. So I can see from your background that you definitely have an interest in marine life. How did you kind of first become interested in marine organisms? Did you kind of like grow up near the coast or something?
Yeah, so I grew up in the East Bay area near San Francisco. And every now and then we would go out to the ocean or go out to the aquarium in Monterey. And I loved, looking at all the sea creatures. And I was always fascinated with water. Yeah, when I was in middle school, I took a class on marine biology and environmental science, and that really kind of like drove me more and more into into really liking the ocean and like really trying to help protect it and why it's important. From there I took another marine biology class in high school, and that really drove me to wanting to study it in college. So that's what I did. And yeah, during my undergrad, I learned even more about the ocean, and I ended up working for a whale watching company, which got me really interested in whales. And my senior capstone was on abalone, so my whole class got to go tide pooling for an entire semester, which was really great.
I am very jealous of that. That sounds like a really fun time. So when did art and science kind of start to intertwine for you? It seems like you have a really strong science background, but when did kind of art and science start to talk to each other?
Yeah, so I've also always really been interested in art. Like I would always have a sketchbook with me, and I would always be drawing on like restaurant napkins and placemats. When I got into college, I was really encouraged by my advisor as well as a lot of professors and a lot of friends that I should really pursue science illustration, which was a great combination of both because, you really got to use science and take, the new science that was coming in, and you got to help others learn about it through art. And so I think art really helps people learn more about what's around us.
And looking at the kind of process of you creating these two illustrations for the Burke, what does that kind of artistic process look like? What kind of mediums are you working with, and what does that look like from start to finish?
Yeah, so in general, I really like working traditionally with graphite pencils, pen and ink, watercolor. Those would be probably my top three like traditional mediums. But for the projects I worked on with the Burke, everything was done completely digitally. My goal for this project is because of the pandemic. I know I've seen that a lot of institutions are starting to create like more online content to help people get more interested in STEM and have K through 12th graders get interested in STEM. And so I felt that with something digital, it would be a lot easier to, resize and uh, read digitally or virtually. And so with that, I also started with a sketch, and from there I completed all of the final artwork in Photoshop for the Malacology poster, and everything for the comic strip was also done in Adobe Illustrator.
In choosing the organisms that you looked at, kind of the wide diversity of mollusks that you worked with, how did you kind of choose your subject matter? And And did you end up using anything at the Burke to kind of inspire those illustrations?
Yeah, so with the Malacology or with the mollusca poster, it was Melissa's idea to kind of have a poster that had that word and like have it represent the biodiversity of mollusks. And we were, as soon as she said that, I was like, wow, we're definitely on the same page, because I really wanted to do a project that showcased the biodiversity of mollusks, because it's just such a big group of animals that not a whole lot of people even realize that an octopus is in the same family or same group as a clam. And so I really wanted to showcase that. And so it was really easy to get on board with the project. And then in terms of like the organisms that I chose for each one, I tried to keep it as generic as possible. But even with that being said, I really, since I'm a West Coast girl and love the Pacific Northwest, I wanted to focus a little bit more of the species on the PNW. So
Yeah, and during that kind of like period of researching different mollusks and kind of like zeroing in on the species or groups that you wanted to showcase, was there anything that surprised you or anything that you kind of like learned that was interesting?
yeah, so I learned about a whole lot of different groups that of mollusks that I didn't even know existed. So I would say one of the cooler ones would probably be the scaphopods, or the tusk shells. And their shells are super cool because they're, you know, really long, and they go really thin, kind of like an elephant tusk, or just another different tusk. And what's also really cool is that compared to a snail or an abalone that only has like one main opening for their shell, scaphopods have like two openings. So they'll have one at the base that kind of digs into the sand where their head is, and then they'll have another one at the top.
Yeah, and during this process, did you kind of like go out to the coast for inspiration or do a little tide pooling of your own to kind of see where these species are
Yeah,
out in the wild?
I didn't get a chance to, just because I moved back to the East Bay. So I'm a little bit more inland from the ocean as I would like to be. But since I did live in Monterey for so long, I have a lot of pictures from the tide pools there, and lots of different, um, pictures of shells and what all of these creatures look like when they're alive. So it was really fun to, kind of use those reference photos again. And, it kind of took me back to the tide pools, even though I wasn't there.
Yeah, and for people that see your illustration and just see how beautiful it is and all the different diversity that is represented in this group, what advice would you give to people who want to learn more about mollusks in their own region?
Yeah, so I would say if you wanted to learn more about the different mollusks where you're at, or if you're in a place where you might not have access to like marine mollusks, just know that there are also terrestrial mollusks in the shape of snails and slugs, and those are also really cool. So one thing that I've learned to really like using is iNaturalist, which is an app that lets you kind of see what other people around you in your neighborhoods are seeing. And it's also really great if you see like a slug that you might not know of, or some type of snail, you can always take a picture and upload it and see, if someone can help you identify it, which is really great. And then reaching out or looking at your local museums or aquariums, they'll have a huge collection of information about what's around you. And there's a whole bunch of scientists working to, help you identify and collect information to teach you.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much, Sammy. Thank you for sharing your art with us and all your knowledge. If people want to learn more about the work that you do and maybe see some of your other illustrations, where should they go check that out?
Yeah, thanks. It was really great being here. If you want to see more of my work, my website is schangstudios.com. And if you want to see my current projects or kind of keep up with me live, I also have an Instagram at schang.studios where I'll be posting, kind of more updated projects and in progress pieces of what I'm working on.
Great. Well, I am probably going to go check that out right after this interview. Thank you so much, Sammy. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you again for having me.